My life shifted in an instant the day I received news of an unexpected inheritance. A distant relative, someone I had barely known, had left me something astonishing: 1,200 acres of land, an enormous stretch of open ground that now legally belonged to me. The magnitude of it was hard to process. I felt awe, disbelief, and a quiet sense of possibility all at once. I pictured a peaceful future there, a place to reconnect with nature, to build something meaningful, to start fresh. What I didn't realize was that this inheritance carried a problem so massive it would change everything. According to every official document, the land was mine, the deeds were clear, the records were legitimate. But I was about to uncover a reality that would shatter every peaceful vision I had imagined. This wasn't simply property. It was a battlefield waiting to ignite. The story of how I inherited that land, and how I was forced to fight for what was rightfully mine, starts here. When I first visited the property, I was filled with excitement and curiosity. I wanted to see the open space, to walk the soil that now carried my family's legacy. But what I saw instead stopped me cold. A sign stood near the entrance, small but unmistakable, marking a subdivision boundary. There were paved roads cutting through the land. Streetlights lined the paths. Concrete foundations had already been poured for homes. An entire homeowners association had constructed a full neighborhood on my property. I stood there in stunned silence. How was this even possible? Before me was a fully developed community. Manicured lawns, shared amenities, tidy mailboxes lined up in rows. And then the letters started arriving. Formal notices demanding fees. Documents outlining rules and regulations for a property that legally belonged to me. My confusion quickly burned into anger and disbelief. They hadn't asked permission. They hadn't negotiated. They had simply occupied the land and claimed it as their own. I searched for some rational explanation, some misunderstanding buried in paperwork. But every attempt to clarify only deepened the mystery and strengthened my resolve. This was my inheritance, my land, and they were living on it without any lawful claim. In that moment, I understood something clearly. This would not be resolved with polite conversation. It would be a fight. Still, I tried to handle it calmly at first. I approached the HOA leadership directly, hoping for reason and cooperation. I brought copies of my legal documents, clear proof of ownership supported by official records. Their response was immediate and shockingly dismissive. They insisted I had no standing. They argued that their community was already established, that their presence overrode my claim. What began as polite discussion quickly escalated into tense exchanges. Soon, the hostility was undeniable. My calls went unanswered. My emails were ignored. They stonewalled me completely. Their confidence bordered on arrogance. They acted as though they were immune to consequences. I tried to explain the historical chain of ownership, the documented transfer of the land through my family. But they refused to see anything beyond their constructed streets and investment portfolios. My frustration hardened into determination. This situation could not be allowed to continue. They had chosen denial. Now they would have to face reality. The window for friendly resolution had closed. Legal action was the only path forward. I retained experienced attorneys and laid out every intricate detail of the situation. The case was complex, tangled in decades of property records, boundary surveys, and forgotten filings. We examined historical deeds and traced ownership lines back generations. Piece by piece, we built an airtight argument. The courtroom became the new battleground. Stakes were high, and every motion mattered. Meanwhile, the HOA organized meetings with residents, attempting to rally support and maintain unity. Some homeowners appeared anxious, clearly worried about what this dispute meant for them. Others were openly defiant, convinced their community was secure. As days turned into weeks, my resolve only deepened. This fight wasn't just about acreage. It was about justice. It was about standing up for what was legally and morally right. The legal arguments were dense and technical, rooted in property law and long-standing precedent. We uncovered archived records that confirmed my family's uninterrupted claim to the land. Evidence surfaced that the HOA's development approvals had been based on flawed assumptions and incomplete title research. Under scrutiny, their defense began to crumble. This case had grown far beyond a simple property disagreement. It had become a matter of principle. The legal struggle was exhausting, a relentless test of patience, stamina, and willpower. Media outlets began picking up the story, publishing dramatic accounts of the escalating conflict. Public attention brought waves of support, but also intense scrutiny. I made it clear in every statement. I would not abandon my rightful claim. The land that once symbolized peace had transformed into a stage for confrontation. I said it plainly. I'm not playing nice anymore. This is war. Every filing, every court appearance, every public declaration pushed the case forward. The emotional toll weighed heavily on me, yet my determination never faltered. Moments of resistance and defiance reminded me exactly what was at stake. This battle is still unfolding. The future of those 1,200 acres remains uncertain. But one thing is not uncertain. I will not surrender what belongs to my family. This land is part of my legacy, and I intend to fight for it, no matter how long it takes.